Please welcome to the stage Managing Director for Global Nuclear Concepts, Ricky Ruff.
Good morning, good morning. It is quite the morning. I'm actually on LA time. I flew in just last night from LA and it is 3 hours ahead. So it is morning here, but it is really morning where I'm from. So I just want to, first of all, address one of the perhaps elephants in the room, right? And that is why someone from fashion would be here to speak to you this morning about nuclear energy. So admittedly so, these are not two industries that often converge, the fashion industry and the nuclear industry. Not exactly, what you would expect to have the most synergies. However, if you would allow me, I would love to introduce myself and tell you a bit about my story, about where I'm from, about what I've done, about where I've been, and about what I am doing, because I'm excited about all of it, and I hope to get you excited about it as well. So on this journey, let me take you back 2 weeks, back to New York. There was the New York premiere of the film Nuclear Now. So in our industry, quite an exciting moment. Oliver Stone has taken a Hollywood approach to explain exactly what is great about nuclear and taking that message to the world. So at this premiere, I got a chance to talk to Oliver, got a chance to also talk to Professor Joshua Goldstein. And in our conversation, one of the most poignant pieces that I remember is the fact that Oliver mentioned, of all of his body of work, I'm a huge fan, by the way, but of all of his body of work, this moment and this film was the most important thing he could be doing with his time. And I was just so inspired by that because actually, I feel the exact same way. So I am looking to revolutionize the fashion industry with nuclear power. So let me take you back on this journey. Let's take a little mosey back to 2010. So I'm living in New York, and I'm working for Ralph Lauren. That was my first job. So I'll come back to New York a few times throughout this journey because it's actually a very important piece of my story and just myself as a person. But in New York, I worked for Ralph Lauren first doing costing and allocations. I studied in New York. I did my undergraduate. I studied fashion design and merchandising, and I had 2 minors. Business and product development. And so at Ralph, one of the most important lessons that I learned was the ability to manifest your dreams into reality. And I was also impressed by one thing up close. Around the world, everyone knows the brand Ralph Lauren, and everyone knows exactly the kind of impact that he's had. And he's also an export of not only American style, but also American culture. So just to set the stage, this is exactly what inspired me to want to have my own impact on the world. So throughout my time at Ralph Lauren, I had a few different jobs. I worked in global manufacturing and sourcing. I did product lifecycle management. I was a production manager for the Runway collection. And I was just building my 10-plus year career in fashion. But at the end of it, there's just this idea of impact. Let's fast forward to Switzerland, 2017. So I actually went to HR, had some incredible mentors, and they mentioned, if you need to leave, if you need to grow, if you need to go and pursue one of your passions, please go and do that, and feel free to come back anytime when you're ready, when you're stronger. I posed it to them as a sabbatical. I needed to take a sabbatical to go and do a master's degree, and I wanted to move to Switzerland, and that's exactly what I did. So while in Switzerland, wanting to have this huge impact, as a part of my master's curriculum, I studied international management, and I had the chance to work with the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, as well as the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. And in Switzerland, that was my first real foray and real deep dive into the Sustainable Development Goals. So I was particularly inspired by these goals, because imagine 17 points, 17 areas of focus that could literally change the world, and dare I say, save the world. Again, inspired by this consolidated list of 17 points, and this is actually going to be the backbone and the foundation of how I function today, personally and professionally, and also some of the most poignant parts of how I run my business. So having had exposure to these Swiss agencies on the government level, I was just inspired to take the Foreign Service Officer exam. I took it in Frankfurt. So with this dream, going back to New York, back to Ralph Lauren, to have global impact, we have to be literally working around the globe. You have to be working across borders. Now, this cross-border theme is quite important because the issue of climate and the issue of energy security is not confined to any border, and it does not respect borders. We are all on this planet together as nations, all 195 countries, and the problem that faces one of us faces each of us. So let's take another stop to Great Britain. So after my master's, after Switzerland, I was invited to the London Stock Exchange. I got a chance to work with Ambassador Pio Vanutes from Switzerland, and also with Rukan Manaz of the UN Capital Development Fund, and also Alejandro Latovsky, founder of the Earth Security Group. And at the London Stock Exchange, I had the opportunity to really deep dive into the nuances of what it takes to engage with the financial community. It's a different industry as well, but there are specific ways in which you must conduct yourself and communicate in terms of speaking to finance people. I was there for the Energy Security Summit, and it was an economic summit for environmental finance. So from London, I got to fast forward just a little while to 2021. Let me take you to Geneva. So I had the opportunity to visit IAEA. So everyone in this room understands the importance of this global institution, this UN institution. So as I am an admitted pedestrian in the industry, coming from fashion, I thought it very important to upskill myself on exactly what it means to function in nuclear on a global level. Anyone that's been to IAEA may recognize Sophie, but the most important part of this trip was the fact that I could express my ideas and really articulate what I was trying to do by merging fashion and nuclear. And I was just blown away by how serious they took me, and how encouraging they were, and how much they actually promoted and supported the idea. And this was just more fuel on the fire. So again, to take it back to my theme of wanting to have this global impact and being inspired by the ability to impact and change the world, you'll notice that all UN agencies, there's the flags from around the globe. So a very poignant part of my inspiration is, again, to be able to have that global impact, and so these flags were incredibly symbolic for me at IAEA. So let me take you to China. I'm sure that's a burning question, even a hot button issue now. If there's any China hawks in the room, we are in DC. But you may ask, what in the world were you doing in China? Ricky, why were you living in China? In fact, every member of my family asked me, why in the world are you moving to China? And I think we all know what was happening at 2021. It was the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I was actually moving into China. So China is important for a few reasons. So first of all, there are 37 active reactors there with plans to build 19 more. But more importantly, it was a chance to understand exactly what it means to go far and go fast in terms of how to build. And in terms of demystifying some of the diplomatic tensions, I had such a beautiful experience with the people there. And it was such a beautiful experience to experience just the society there. I came back as perhaps a bit of a technocrat. So digital. Everything is QR codes. It really blew my mind. It's a country 100 years in advance of anything that I'd seen around the world. So to be inside was an honor and a privilege. But to take you back also to the Foreign Service Officer exam, it was a chance to work across borders and build these bridges. Another big piece of China is the fact that they've had a correlation between their energy use and their economic growth. There's been a positive correlation between the energy use and the economic growth. As the economy there has grown, so in step has their energy use, albeit not clean energy, but it's certainly the correlation that exists. So from China, with this population of billions plus people, right, this idea of having enough energy is important as a central theme. Okay, so to quote Professor Goldstein, It's not about conservation. That will never get us to where we need to go. It's about having more energy, and that is just clean energy.
My name is Ricky Ruff, and I'm on a mission to decarbonize manufacturing in the fashion industry. I was the first football player in the history of Mayor's College in New York to major in fashion, followed by 7 years in global manufacturing with Ralph Lauren. I moved to Switzerland to complete my master's degree in international management, and while living abroad, I truly grasped the importance of climate change. My ambition is to advance sustainability in my industry in an unprecedented way. Did you know that our clothes are responsible for 1.7 billion tons of carbon emitted annually? My solution is to retrofit every factory in the world with a zero carbon clean energy source. Visit me at globalnuclearconcepts.com and let's begin cleaning up the atmosphere right now.
This was a piece that I put out when I first launched my company, Global Nuclear Concepts. So I operate with 3 principles: vision, advocacy, and action. The vision is a clear one. We want to decarbonize manufacturing in the fashion industry with nuclear power. The advocacy piece comes into play because we need buy-in from the public. So I find that my industry provides an incredible on-ramp for that buy-in. The last piece is action. I have 5 points that I'll be sharing with you. 5 separate projects, 5 separate initiatives, 5 separate opportunities to engage that are my strategic points of how we will be moving this initiative forward. So it is quite the consensus as well that we are not exactly on track to hit our 2030, 2040, 2050 targets. There's some adjustment that needs to happen, and there's some aggressive action that needs to happen immediately. So in terms of the advocacy piece, I'd like to just walk you through a triumvirate of stakeholders. So we have the nuclear energy industry. That's you all here. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. I actually leaned on you for your expertise, and you've been great so far. NEI's been great so far. All the resources and expertise that you offer have been incredible. But in order to move the real full-scale deployment of nuclear that's necessary forward, we need the buy-in from the public. And I'm seeing, again, the fashion industry as a way to do this. It's a clear example of how we can plug in reactors and practical examples at fashion factories around the world. You'll see that Global Nuclear Concept sits in the center of this triangle to connect all the dots. So quite an alarming fact that's still, true for our world today is that 13% of the globe does not have access to electricity. In 2023, in such a modern time, that just always blows my mind that that's still the case. But it is, it's true. But there's a way we can fix this. So as a rich country, through our industrial activity, we have used the carbon budget for poor countries. They deserve the ability to industrialize. They deserve the chance to go through an industrial revolution the same way that we have here in the Western rich world. And we really don't have a right to tell them that they cannot because we've spent their carbon budget through our industrial activity. In terms of energy security and in terms of the future projected demand, S&P Global produces some reports, and the most recent one has us at 47% increase by 2050 of the world's energy requirements. We're not going to need less, we're going to need more, but it's got to be clean. So back to the Sustainable Development Goals. Of the 17, these 7 are the ones that I focus on and the ones that I truly base all of my strategy on. Goal 12, Goal 8, Goal 11, Goal 13, Goal 7, Goal 9, and Goal 6. These are the exact ways in which I can try to change the world. So let me take you back to last year. And this is the first of the 5 initiatives that my company is putting forth. Nepal. So this is an incredibly, let's say, complex case. And there's a few angles and a few themes that I really want to take a moment to articulate to you. You may have heard me talk about them before, but I really want to just make sure that in this forum, I make those quite clear. So in Nepal, the first part of this is the fact that it is an incredibly beautiful, untouched, unique landscape on the planet. I'm not sure there's any place else on the planet that actually offers the same kind of geographic benefits that Nepal offers. Okay? For that reason, there's communities there that can produce some of the highest quality cashmere in the world. You'll see these communities are actually energy insecure. Quite sad. The other piece of this is the fashion industry, of course, because there's brands that sell cashmere garments for thousands, plural, thousands of dollars per article. So here we are on the one hand with a community that's energy insecure, that's producing raw material worth thousands. How can we help them? How can we solve this? How can we actually get them the energy they need? How can we help them participate in the global marketplace? So my company, Global Nuclear Concepts, is actually helping them to bring their cashmere to market. And we are actually placing a reactor there in those communities in Nepal, in the Himalayas. We're working with Oklo to do this. It's off-grid, so the applications are perfect. And it's really a prime example of how we can change the world one community at a time. It's a prime example of how nuclear fits into ESG strategies. It's a prime example of how we are lifting people out of poverty. It's a prime example of how fashion is intersecting with nuclear. If you've never seen raw cashmere, please take a look at how it's spun. Incredibly hand-intensive process, incredibly human-intensive process, but one of the most beautiful and pure processes on earth, and one of the most important in fashion. The second case that I'm working with, the second initiative that Global Nuclear Concepts is working on as we speak, takes place in Turkey. So last year, I had the chance to visit Istanbul. If you've never been to Istanbul, it's an incredible place. I really recommend it. Even now, there was an earthquake last year, but they're recovering quite on track. So the important part of Istanbul is the fact that, you know, if we go back to the days of Constantinople, even the Claudio-Julian family, this was the link between the East and West. Trading took place from Asia to the Western world through Istanbul. So just historically, it had an incredible relevance just for me. But if I'm there in terms of business, there's some incredible opportunities I just saw a chance to sink my teeth into, if you will. So that's Ahmet Davutoğlu. He's the former prime minister of Turkey. So on this trip, I was able to really get a deep dive into the culture and understand the opportunity. So right now, fashion manufacturing admittedly takes place in China. However, if we go back just a few generations ago, we were looking at Turkey, Greece, Italy. These were the manufacturing capitals of the world that had all of the artisan expertise. So also for that reason, I was attracted to Turkey from a fashion perspective. Also, this photo actually explains exactly how I intend to function as a diplomat, because it's really not about going in a suit and having an official state dinner, but it's a matter of connecting with leaders and connecting with people, and this is exactly my strategy to move the needle forward, right? It's about having conversation person to person with these heads of state, with these regulatory bodies, and telling our story as nuclear, one project and one person at a time, to literally change minds, change the tone, change the tide, change the tempo. So you'll notice as well, these are architects' renderings of a factory that is set to take place, that we're going to break ground on it next year. Can you imagine how they're going to power this factory? Any ideas? It's going to be with nuclear power. Literally, this factory already has a site that they operate in Turkey, and they're already manufacturing for some of the largest, most recognizable brands in the industry. Already taking place. But at their new next generation factory, we're in talks at the moment, and we will be placing a reactor in Turkey at this factory for fashion manufacturing. That's the second way. So I've got three more for you. So I have an initiative called Shaping the Message. How dare I, as a relative pedestrian in nuclear, claim to understand everything that needs to be said about nuclear and everything that needs to be communicated to the public? That would be quite pompous and arrogant to assume that I have all the answers. So through this online summit, this webinar, if you will, I'm hosting leaders, much like yourself. You'll all probably be hearing from me, but I need to be able to shape the message in terms of what we need to say to the public. That's number 3, initiative number 3. Number 4, there is a chance to connect fashion to the nuclear industry through what I'm calling industry meetups. The first one will be at Ralph Lauren. We're going to have it at the Polo Bar in New York. Then we'll have subsequent events. The second one will be in Paris. So it's a chance for industry leaders, industry stakeholders from nuclear to have direct conversation and direct contact with those stakeholders from the fashion industry, all hosted by Global Nuclear Concepts at these Jeffersonian-style industry meetups. The last and final initiative that Global Nuclear Concepts is putting forward is what we're calling pop-up museums at Fashion Week. We're targeting the first one to take place in the spring of 2024, and they're entitled When the Fashion Industry Meets Nuclear Energy. What can you expect to see at one of these events? So, pardon me if I get a little too excited here, but Fashion Week is one of the most exciting moments in my industry. It's a chance where we have all the eyes of the global public, we have all of the retail partners, all the buyers, all the business of each season really happens during Fashion Week. So imagine, front and center, during this incredible time, nuclear has an incredible entree into that excitement. Imagine an event where all of the reactor manufacturers are able to explain and showcase their latest technologies to an incredibly open market ready to receive the positive messages about nuclear power. The first one will take place in New York. The second one will be in 2024 in the fall in Milan. So I want to close just with explaining how humbled I am and how excited I am and how honored I am to have had the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. And to be honest, a lot of my goals are accomplished just by being in front of you here today. So I'll be around today, tomorrow. I would hope to engage with all of you, and let's actually together move this needle on nuclear deployment forward. Thank you so much.